Welcome to episode 13 of Pearls of Christian Mental Prayer. Our topic today is carrying our crosses. This episode is being recorded during the first week of Lent, and that's a particularly appropriate time to talk about our crosses for a host of reasons. But in particular today, we want to make it personal. In fact, very personal, because Christ made it personal.
Our big goal is happiness in this life and heaven in the next. To achieve this, we need to stay close to God throughout each day. But how do we do that while living in the real world with all of its challenges and distractions? Christian mental prayer, meditation, and contemplation is the answer. This podcast mines the riches of the greatest spiritual tradition on earth so we can grow in holiness together. I'm Steve Smith. Thank you for joining me for Pearls of Christian Mental Prayer.
Thank you so much, as always, for joining me for this podcast. I hope you're having an excellent Lent if you're watching this during Lent. And again, our topic today is the cross. And the cross, obviously, that sign of contradiction. It is an implement of torture, but it's also referred to in this context, the glory of the cross. And that's what we want to focus on today, the glory of the cross. Glory, that is one of those words that defies a concise definition, similar to joy. Particularly when we're talking about it in the Christian sense of the word. And theologians, they wrestle with it. They struggle to come up with a specific meaning of glory. And so we're certainly not going to take up that challenge here. We're just going to look at a particular aspect of the word glory, and that's glory as the manifestation of God. So we're looking at the glory of the cross and glory as a manifestation of God. Now we have another word, we have manifestation. Manifestation can be thought of as an event that clearly shows or embodies something. An event that clearly shows or embodies something. So the glory of the cross is something is clearly shown and embodied in that. Here's an example from Exodus. And this is Moses. I'm going to say Moses getting rather plucky after he's come quite some way with God the Father. And then Moses said, "Please, let me see your glory." The Lord answered, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim my name, Lord, before you. I who show favor to whom I will, I who grant mercy to whom I will. But you cannot see my face, for no one can see me and live. Here, continued the Lord, is a place near me where you shall station yourself on the rock. When my glory passes, I will set you in the cleft of the rock, and will cover you with my hand until I have passed by." That's from Exodus chapter 33. And so we have here a scene also of great tenderness, the Lord's care for Moses, who he would talk to face as one friend to another. On a side note, it really does take pluck. It'd be like, calling up the president and saying, "Yeah, I want to see you do a flyby in Air Force One." And in fact, it's not so much an example of Moses's pluck as it is of God's humility, his care for us, that God is even entertaining these things, that he's willing to enter into that aspect of relationship with Moses. But back on topic, here we have now God presenting his glory. He also associates it as his goodness. He's displaying that to Moses. And it's really a greater fullness of the presence of God. Moses already had that experience of being in God's presence, certainly in the burning bush. And like anybody, Moses is saying, I desire more. I want to be even closer to you. And so God presents more of himself, more of his goodness. He manifests himself in a greater way. Here, that is thus glory for us. Here's another example of glory. Jesus transfigured on Mount Tabor was Jesus in glory. This from Luke chapter 9. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance and his clothing became dazzling white. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory. You bet they were awake at that moment. Imagine waking up to that. But the apostles saw Jesus's glory. They saw the greater reality of Christ. They saw him more closely, more fully as he really is. Another example of the word glory. So it follows then, in the glory of the cross, we're seeing the cross more fully as it is. Christ's cross as our source of redemption, as the tree of life, as it's associated. Here's one last piece for the puzzle. This from Luke chapter 24. And he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" And on a side note, that's got to be kind of bracing to have the Lord say, "How foolish you are." I resemble that many times. But here, it's necessary. The cross was necessary for Jesus to enter into his glory. As it turns out, the cross is absolutely necessary in our path. In fact, it is our path to become the greater fullness, the greater reality of who we are, who we were created to be. There is literally no other way than the cross. None. Any message, any piece of advice that points to anything other than the cross is a false message, period. And we know this because of the scripture passage we've been focusing on. From Mark chapter 8, he summoned the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." If we wish to become Jesus' disciple, we must take up our cross. It is not optional. If we want healing, if we want redemption, if we want to become fully ourselves, if we want to be fully available to God and neighbor, if we want eternity in heaven, all of these things, happiness in this life and the next, we must become Jesus' disciple. There's no other way to the Father than through the Son. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So we must be Jesus's disciples. And he's telling us, if you want to be my disciple, the path to that is to take up your cross. So, there we have it. Without it, we don't pass go. We don't collect $200. More importantly, we don't collect eternal life in the full. And notice also, we can't take up our cross until we deny ourselves. This is what we were talking about in our last episode. If our hands are completely occupied and full trying to grasp onto all of our selfiness, all of the stuff that we want to accumulate in this life, how can we possibly grasp our cross? How can we take it up? We can't. We got to drop all that baggage. We got to let it go. Have to deny ourselves so that we can embrace our cross, embrace the path to becoming our true self, who we were created to be. Now, in truth, we carry many crosses, or you can think of it as many splinters of wood that make up our cross. But either way, there are many trials, many hardships, and many aspects of ourself that need to be shed, that we have to carry, that we have to do battle with in this life. And there are two different general categories of these things. There are the crosses that we willingly take up. Perhaps we look at all of the chaos in the world around us, and maybe our little part of the world, all of the disarray, perhaps in our church, especially in our local church, in our parish. And we say, this isn't right. This is not how it's supposed to be. And we decide to do our part in that, recognizing our part in it. And okay, I'm going to fast once a week. I'm going to say a novena once a week. What have you, some small offering of self. I'm going to donate more time at the church, donate more money, whatever. That's us willingly taking up a little extra self-giving, a little extra emptying of ourself to enter into that. That's a cross that we willingly take on. Then there are the crosses that are imposed on us. Those crosses that may involve sickness, loss of a job, financial troubles, especially the crosses of seeing the suffering of loved ones. So these are the crosses that are generally the hardest to bear. Those things that we didn't seek out and that are put upon us, but that just the same, we are called to embrace, called to take up upon ourselves. Jesus gives us the beautiful and powerful example of transfiguring his cross, of revealing the glory of the cross that does become the tree of life, that does become the source of our redemption, the cross that leads to his resurrection. So he can transfigure our crosses as well. And that's always the key in this. It's always God's grace, always God's doing. What depends on us is our willingness to let him do that good work in our life. So again, our willingness to embrace our cross. And it's important here to recognize that our crosses are always very personal. God knows exactly what we need in our life to help purify ourselves, to sanctify ourselves, to make us holy, to help sanctify the world around us. Our crosses are always not just personal, they're perfect. They are perfect for us. And that's why our cross is our path. Everyone has a very unique path. Mine is not the same as yours. Yours is not mine. And part of our path is that cross, that very specific cross, as we talk about the sweetness of our cross, when we recognize that when we embrace it and allow God to transfigure it, that great beauty comes from it. So I'm going to suggest during this Lent that you make a list of your crosses, as many as you can think of. It may be 50, it may be 100, who's to say, from big to small. And then pray with that list. Maybe not the whole list, perhaps start with those crosses that are the most challenging to bear. Pray with them. Pray for the Lord to reveal to you the glory of that cross. How is that cross priceless in terms of helping you to break through, to grasp hold of your salvation, to become exactly who you're supposed to be, to shed whatever that is that's coiled around you, that is holding you back from becoming more fully yourself. And here's just a very small, simple example, almost trivial example for me, but I have a terrible memory. That's why I'm always working from notes. I can't remember anything. Even sometimes the most obvious words, I just get completely stuck in the mud trying to remember the simplest thing, practically my own name. And I have great admiration for people that have these wonderful sticky minds and can just pull up just endless facts and information usefully, appropriately, just the right thing at the right time. Sometimes that admiration can cross the boundary into envy. Why can't I do that? So it's a cross. It's frustrating. Sometimes I feel it makes me look foolish or whatever in certain situations. It's a cross, albeit a small one. What happens? If I don't embrace the cross, if I'm resisting it, what's my response then in those situations? Frustration, anxiety, anger, shame, whatever, envy, all the negative responses that you can think of. What happens when I embrace the cross? When I just recognize, what? This is a challenge God has given me for a reason. My response is almost one of just bemusement. There I go again. There I go. That's classic me. It's always just kind of funny. I recognize the work that's being done there, particularly for humility for me. So that is a cross that when I choose to embrace it, good things come from it in my life and probably others. Maybe it sets somebody else at ease. Who's to say? But with that, I recommend making a list of those crosses. What are the ones that God has given you? Pray with them. Lord, reveal your glory. Reveal your glory. How are you working through this? And this then brings us to that final, there goes my memory, that final statement that Christ makes. We deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow. Follow him. Follow him where? That is the way. That is the path that is revealed through our crosses. So in our next episode, we will pick up there. Thank you again so much for making this time for the Lord. And I look forward to being with you again.